Thank you so much for joining us at Real Twin Peaks Days, where we're celebrating the town where it all happened. If you've been coming to panels and events all week, you've seen these things be introduced by who I like to think of as the mayor of Twin Peaks, Stephen Miller, but I mean, he has done great intros for everyone. I said, hey, Stephen, instead of having a great one, why don't you let me do one and I'll introduce you? And Stephen said, as long as I say that he's working on a straight story book for 2027, who would be excited about that? Oh, Stephen!
I guess I have to do it.
Maybe you have to. I've been pressuring him to do a book for my company for Straight Story. Don't we want that?
Yes.
I mean, who's done a book on Straight Story? Nobody. So Stephen and Vinny are the proppiest prop people. Let's give them props for their proppiest props. They discover things that nobody else has discovered. And they're a little concerned, I can see it in their eyes, they're a little concerned that they're going to go too deep. They're not going to, are they? We want the deepest, we want the details, we want it all. Stephen and Vinny.
How's everybody doing today? Did you have a great first day at the Real Twin Peaks?
Yep.
Well, I want to take a moment to thank the North Bend Downtown Foundation, the historic downtown of Snoqualmie, and North Bend Theater, which is having a bunch of different activities throughout the weekend, and then of course the Black Dog Arts Cafe.
Yes, it's a beautiful cafe, and we're happy to be here.
Exactly. So, what Vinny and I would like to talk about is things that we think we only care about, but it looks like there's a lot of other people here that care about this stuff, which is great.
If they don't care about them now,
Yeah.
hopefully they will.
Hopefully
care
not.
about them.
So, when Vinny and I were talking about, well, what do we want to talk about? Last year at the Real Twin Peaks event, we just talked about, did you know, a bunch of different things about the filming that was done here in Snoqualmie Valley. But this year we wanted to take a tour of not only here in Washington State, but also in Southern California.
Southern California and beyond.
Yes, exactly.
So I don't know if everybody here is aware, but well, you're probably aware that filming took place in the Snoqualmie Valley for the Twin Peaks pilot and Fire Walk with Me and many establishing shots and the third season. What you might not know is there are a lot of locations that were established here in the valley that then moved to a second location when production was moved to Southern California sets. And many of the exterior establishing shots also changed.
So before we begin, though, it's important, see if we can get this thing to work. It does work. This is great. I want to take a moment to recognize the land in which we are on. It's important to recognize the tribe, and the Snoqualmie tribe has been here for a very, very long time. And the land in which we are on is a lot of it is tribe land. So if you are going to go out and explore areas, just ask, please be respectful, And then I definitely invite you to stop by the Snoqualmie Falls. There's a great welcome center that they introduced just recently, redid it, tells the story of the tribe, the importance of Snoqualmie Falls to the tribe. So please check that out. And then also would be remiss without talking about the Snoqualmie Valley Historical Museum. Christy Lake and her team out there have done a phenomenal job in terms of preserving the history of this area. Follow them on social media, stop by the museum, they'll be open here this weekend. A really great way to learn about Snoqualmie Valley, which Twin Peaks has been a part of since yesterday in 1989. February 21st, 1989 was the first day of filming that was done here in Snoqualmie Valley. The crew had visited the area a couple of weeks earlier. A small crew, David, Mark, and Julie Duvik, who was the location manager, and they went out and found a lot of these different places. Mark Frost talks about, it was all in the script of Northwest Passage, is what it was known as the time, and they ran into the towns here, had the hotel above the falls, they had the diner, and they really just fell in love with this particular area. So to start, though, let's talk about the Great Northern Hotel. It's the beginning. You see this in the opening credits. It's one of the very first scenes, that's here following the discovery of Laura Palmer. The Great Northern Hotel is known as the Salish Lodge. It was built in 1916. It was an 8-room inn, and it had a really great restaurant. You have to see, before I-90, which is that highway that takes you out of Seattle, this was like a major stop or a stop along the way to Snoqualmie Pass. And Snoqualmie Pass is the foothills of the Cascades. It's out to skiing and recreation. And the Snoqualmie Falls is the second most visited destination in Washington State, right behind Mount Rainier. In fact, if you are at the Seattle airport, you're going to see banners of Mount Rainier and Snoqualmie Falls, because it's a huge tourist destination, and it has been for many, many years. So the Snoqualmie Falls Lodge had been there. People had known that it was the place for this really great hearty breakfast. Em and Scott here had the hearty breakfast the other day at the current Salish Lodge, and it was pretty hearty. Yes. 5 courses,
Perhaps too hearty.
Exactly. So in 1988, the lodge was then redone, and it was expanded to a 91 luxury room hotel. They added a bunch of rooms, you think it's only about a year later or so that they were filming Twin Peaks at that particular place. As you can tell, if you've been out to the lodge recently, they've been doing a lot of work on the lodge. The Snoqualmie Tribe repurchased it. They in 1988, they renamed it to the Salish Lodge, and then they added a spa in 1996, made it Salish Lodge and Spa. But the tribe recently repurchased it and got the falls, everything, and they've been doing a lot of expanding work out there. So when you go out there, you're going to see that things are different. And one of those scenes is when Audrey walks out to the car, the Mercedes. You can't see the view in which she has right here because it's blocked now with the trees that have grown, and they expanded the porte-cochere about a year ago. So you don't necessarily see this, but some of the windows that you can see there, and it can almost line up Mount Si. It looks very much like that right now with the snow-capped mountains there. The room that Audrey walks out of is also very different.
Very different. The doorway is gone.
Yeah.
The chimney is gone. It's sort of jarring if you show up with your saddle shoes and pull up to the curb. You're not going to be able to recreate that exactly anymore.
And the reason why is they're expanding the dining room. They're making it much larger. They're going to add tiered levels to it. And the dining, if you get a chance this weekend, they have a great Twin Peaks themed day breakfast. Last year I ran into the chef. His name was Chef Sergio. And he was at the Salish in 2023 when they first introduced this breakfast. It turns out his uncle was an extra on Twin Peaks. He played one of the prison guards when Hank Jennings was exiting out the door, and he's standing right next to him. His name was Aaron. And I was in line to meet Kyle McLaughlin last year, and he's right behind me, and I said Sergio. I was like, wait, you're Sergio, the chef? And I was raving about the breakfast, but it's a really great themed breakfast, fresh squeezed orange juice and the whole 9 yards. So, but check that out. But again, the other piece that you're going to notice in the that's no longer there, the missing piece, if you will, is the stone bollards. They were removed sometime in late 2019 and replaced with a more modern plant type thing. But there are publicity pictures of Sherilyn Fenn sitting on these stone bollards that had been there since pretty much the resort was redone in 1988. The lodge surprised me with the piece of the stones that they had saved. Because I was I guess it was the only person that would notice this, and so wrote a whole story about my love of the stone bollards and how they're gone, and the passage of time. And yeah, they surprised me with here, why don't you take a piece of the stone?
That's beautiful. Hey, we've got people going to Dirtfish paying for pieces of
that is true.
An old desk that no longer exists. So they know their audience.
I think it's the most unique souvenir,
Wonderful.
I don't know if it's where Sherilyn sat, but it's one of the stone bollards.
In your mind, it can be whatever you want.
Exactly. I guess that's true. So, that is the one of these scenes, the exterior is a great one. Of course, you see the falls and the lodge, and you can see those sort of things. The other view that's really unique, and if you've not seen this, really the best time to see this particular view is in the winter. You can't get it in the fall, in the summer, or spring, because the trees have all grown. But if you go to the parking lot across the way and look through the trees down when the leaves are all gone, you can see this very similar view. They use this as an establishing shot. Was supposed to be the morning, but this is shot at dusk. The sun is setting behind those trees, but it looks like a morning sunrise from that. So, and again, this is all very, very new. This is right after the lodge had been redone and renamed the Salish Lodge back in 1988. So while the exteriors are all pretty much there is one interior. Well, it's not really. I don't know. It's okay. Just go with me on this one. So how many people watched these series back in 1990? Yeah, some of you? All right. So you remember the frenzy, right? The excitement, people were just, they wanted to know who's going to kill Laura Palmer, who killed her. And the answers are going to be revealed, right, at the final episode. There was a lot of the speculation that all the clues are there. You're going to think. So KLSY, which is a local station here in Seattle, they were like the hotspot for people to call in and ask questions about Twin Peaks. And for the season 1 finale, which was held on Wednesday, May 23rd, they held a party at the Salish Lodge for about 100 guests. And on the screen, you see at the left here, that's Garnet Cross, and the other person is Pat Coquell. Does anyone know who Pat Coquell is? Yes, that's right. She was the owner of the Marquee Cafe, known today as Tweed's Cafe, and that was at the time of filming. She does have a cameo in one of the missing pieces of a scene of they shoot through the window of her kind of behind the counter. But Garnett, she is the pie maker. So she was the one that was making all the cherry pies. And if you didn't get to Marquee Cafe before 2 o'clock and any given day after the series debuted, you didn't get your cherry pie because they could not keep in stock the cherry pies. It was such a destination that Pat put on the outside home of Twin Peaks pies that had been redone. There was a yellow banner, there was another different painting. Of course, now it's Double R to Go, themed after the return. But it was a unique party, and it was down in the basement of the Salish where they have a ballroom. They had 3 TV screens, so you got to imagine they weren't flat screens. They were probably the old screens, and they had it lined up, and 100 viewers came out to this particular party and were able to enjoy the season 1 finale. They did not get their answers. They were mad, but it was a great event. I'm sure I would have loved to go to it. This is the only picture I found of it. I wish I could find something else. It's out there. Someday. So while that's the rough interior, the only thing that was really shot inside the lodge, we're going to go over to Bainbridge Island and talk about some of the other places that served as the Great Northern.
So this one's a little further off the beaten path if you're visiting the valley for filming locations. The Kiana Lodge is located at 14976 Sandy Hook Road Northeast in Poulsbo. This was where the interiors for the Great Northern were filmed, as well as exteriors and a few interiors of the Blue Pine Lodge. So the Kiana was an integral utility location for the Twin Peaks pilot episode. You have the log on the beach where Laura's body was found. You have the branch where the bird from the intro sat. Anything they could have filmed there, they did film there. But the interiors are iconic. The structure itself was built in 1929, and it was opened to the public in 1937, and it was originally called the Edgewater Beach Country Club, which was a vacation destination for people who lived in the Seattle area who were looking to escape the city. The property has 1,000 feet of waterfront and 6 acres of garden. And if you visit this, it will be no surprise that this is a popular wedding destination now. As far as the interior, though, a lot of the iconic imagery that we associate with Twin Peaks is Northwest Coast art. And those murals, as well as some of the artwork on the outside, were done by Dwayne Pascoe, who was local to Poulsbo. He's a non-native artist. He's, I believe, of English and Irish descent, but he grew up in Alaska and Seattle, where he learned Indigenous style art, and he actually was integral in reviving the Kassan art style. So yeah, Dwayne Pascoe is a bit of a local legend for.
And we just found out he passed.
Yeah, I don't know how we both missed that.
We completely missed it. He passed last summer. at the end of July at the age of 92. And so he lived still in Paulsbo. And he's one of the several non-native carvers whose artwork is featured at the Cayena. The story pole, the giant story pole that they use some establishing shots of, you can see it in the background. That's also Craig Jackobrown, who is also a local artist. And then Don Wells Keys, he did the Thunderbird totem pole too. They're all non-native carvers that just really was fascinated with native art.
And I'm not sure if the website for the lodge has been updated, but at one point, those were mistakenly also credited to Dwayne Pascoe.
And you can see Dwayne Pascoe. He had he's left his mark on this. Used to be a gift shop in this area out here. He did have that kind of carving, but one of his most famous pieces is inside.
Yeah, you'll recognize that as the reception area from the pilot episode when the Norwegians are leaving. That's pretty much unchanged. I don't know if they've touched up the murals or anything over the years, but it looks identical.
It looks exactly the same to me. This was like the first place I visited in 1996. It was my first Twin Peaks film location during the Fan Fest that year, and it looks exactly the same to me.
Yeah, and the incredible thing about Twin Peaks as it moved to LA is that Richard Hoover, the production designer in the art department, they had to recreate all of this. So it's remarkably seamless for something that's not even filmed in the same state. So some of these murals were recreated, and the Great Northern itself was just expanded vastly in the series. So they had to expand on the artwork that was established in the pilot, and they did a really incredible job. Some of the other interiors we see in the pilot. This is Ben Horn's fireplace, a little bit of a wider view. It looks like more of a nook on screen, but no, that's a beautiful, beautiful, huge room. This is where you would see Audrey, young pretty girl, meddling.
Yes.
Yes.
And that's also, that back wall used to have an alcove in it, right in this area up here. And that's where they also filmed Josie when she's looking in the mirror at the very beginning and kind of turning. They had you can match up the blue tile that used to be there. And a lot of this stuff was found very early on in some of the early location hunters, because it wasn't just us. I don't know how they did it before Google Maps and newspapers.com and so forth, but Charles, who ran intwinpeaks.com for many, many years, that really kind of fueled my interest in some of this stuff. And he was some of the first to find these things and try to match up Brad Dukes and Travis Black. Josh back in the back there. I mean, again, these were some of the very early location hunters, and they used printouts of the screen, screen caps, take it and then print out and try to match up stuff. Now everything's so digital and we can have our phones with us and all that stuff. But before then, so much of it was manual and guesswork.
And things, as they say, change in an instant. So, if we didn't have some of those... Oh, I'm sorry. How'd that get in there?
That's the same one. It's in the lobby, the original lobby.
That one's unchanged.
That has. You can even kind of match up the wood, the grain with it to capture that same shot. It's a great shot, Vinny.
Yeah. A classic Who Wore It Better. The dining area from, I guess this would be the residential area in universe here, is also very recognizable. That huge mirror is just leaning up against the wall. And that's, I believe, the same one that was used in the pilot.
Yeah, it looks exactly the same. The spiral staircase has been updated, and they use the upstairs room now as you said, it's a wedding venue. Mm-hmm. So they use that as the bride's room to get ready or whatever the case is. There's a nice balcony that goes out that way. The door next to it's the bathroom. So just in case you wanted to know. You have to go.
Before we move on to our next location, I want to emphasize the Cayena hosts events all the time. They are very welcoming of Twin Peaks guests, but if you do head out there, it's about a 2-hour trip. Don't waste your time without calling ahead. You don't want to interrupt an event that they're hosting.
And they have been very welcoming to fans over the years. They've held some of the earlier Fan Fest were held out there, but just give them a heads up, give them a call or send them an email. They've been really great about getting back. They'll tell you, yeah, no, don't come out today. Come out some, this other day.
Yeah, we just want to extend the same courtesy to them that they extend to us.
Oh yeah. We won't get into the log. The log moved. There's all sorts of stuff out there. But again, the interiors of the Great Northern and the Blue Pine Lodge here from them. It would take 25 years for us to find another spot of the Great Northern Hotel, another view we'd never seen. This time it's Freddie Sykes and James Hurley sitting on the back loading dock, security guards. They are talking about James' birthday and green gloves and all that kind of stuff. This is actually in Southern California, where a lot of the return, two parts. Obviously a lot were filmed up here, but then they went and did a lot of stuff down there. It's in Pomona. It's the Lanterman Development Center. It's a sprawling campus because long ago it was a development center created in the early 1920s from this in Pomona, 1927. It provided for people with developmental disabilities 24-hour service, but because society was different, they treated them like inmates because they were seen as disturbed and they didn't want to, get them out in society. That evolved into the 1950s when they renamed to a hospital, and it was more of care service. The gentleman there is Lanterman, that is Frank Lanterman. He's a state assemblyman from California who was a big advocate for people with developmental disabilities. And again, this facility here, not only was the loading dock used, which again, we can see this is the actual loading dock itself, but then they also did use several of the interiors for some of the scenes with the autopsy and the hallways and various other stuff like that. But a loading dock, again, something that took 25 years to see behind the scenes of the Great Northern Hotel. It's an operation. It exists,
And now here you all are on vacation hearing about a loading dock.
I thought that the boiler room scene was there, right? Where James goes and he finds the door and so forth. But Vinny, this is amazing.
I got a hot tip, and the stars aligned. The boiler room scenes, I guess, in parts 14 and 17 were filmed downstairs at the Wiltern Theater in LA. And it was sort of a series of perfectly aligned circumstances that I was able to visit this location.
Vinny's a musician, by the way. If you don't know, Vinny is an outstanding musician, and you were friends. But yes, check him out. He has.
You don't know what you're clapping for. You've never heard my band.
I bought Wax in Hand. It's a great solo album that Vinny has. A lot of great nods to Twin Peaks titles.
When you make an instrumental album, you can name the songs anything you want.
Doesn't matter, right?
Anyway, my band Vinny Guitar and the Deadbirds, we've played with the Ataris a few times, and I've bonded with their singer Chris over our love of Twin Peaks. The Ataris were playing at the Wiltern. My friend Bob Hogue, who is another Twin Peaks obsessive, was playing down there with them, and he was like, "Hey, if you want to join us backstage, we can try to find that boiler room," and we did. I want to give a little history on the Wiltern before we get too far in, though. The Wiltern is located at 3790 Wilshire Boulevard in Los Angeles. This is not the only thing that was filmed there. Barton Fink was filmed there. I think parts of Purple Rain were filmed there. And Escape from New York actually films downstairs in the hallway leading up to this boiler room. So it's obviously, looks a little better than it did in Escape from New York. Not quite post-apocalyptic anymore. But yeah, this is not the first. The theater was commissioned by Henry de Roulette. I don't speak French. And the Pelissier family. In 1929, it was a theater and 12 stories of office space. It was beautiful construction. The mural on the ceiling, the original ceiling, I should say, this was damaged long ago, was made by a Dutch artist named Anthony Heinsbergen. And there's a little bit of a Twin Peaks connection there. he actually painted the original proscenium at the Tower Theater in Los Angeles, where Mulholland Drive's Club Silencio scene was filmed, as well as the firemen's scenes in The Return. That mural has been painted over, but I just thought that was incredible that tied together. Yeah, that was painted over, but very cool to know. The Wilterns had a long rocky history. It opened in 1931, closed, changed hands a million times over the years. It did end up on the National Historic Registry, and is finally enjoying a period of prosperity. Now it's a popular music venue run by Live Nation. Yeah.
You win some, you lose some, right?
Musicians will shrug.
It's a beautiful building, so I got to help preserve that. So,
but yeah, as we found ourselves backstage at the Wiltern, the head of security, a gentleman named Mike, who did not understand why we were doing this, helped us find what we were looking for, and it's incredible how much was utilized just in this little boiler room. So this is where we see these fine folks.
I mean, Lynch filmed in Vanta Black, I think. So you can't really see, but that's Gordon, Diane, and Cooper walking down the hall, same hallway.
It's a little less spooky with the lights on. Some of this equipment has been updated over the years, but a lot of it's still recognizable. If we could go back to the AC unit.
Yeah, there we go.
So this is the AC unit for the venue. The notes that you see on this unit are legible on screen in The Return if you pause. You can even see this tag here is for the ACO office in Glendale. So a timely pause might take you out of the moment a bit. But the only thing that was added here was a light bulb hanging down, and Cooper's face.
We're going to head up to Everett. One of the most popular questions that we get asked about is the Palmer House, or the Palmer Houses, because there's actually Palmer Houses in Washington, and there's Palmer Houses in California as well. So we're going to talk about the first one here, being the iconic Palmer House. Who's a fan of this house? Who thinks the other house in Monroe is the Palmer House? Hey. All right, there's reasons why they did some of this, but this is the iconic. This is a photo from 1996, before the internet. I was out here, 20 years old, with my buddy Joe, and we were here at the Fan Fest. We stayed a few extra days in North Bend at the North Bend Motel, and I know it's the spot, right? Back when it was an Alpine themed, and the whole town was Alpine themed. But we got in the car, we heard the Palmer House was in Everett. So we just decided to drive around Everett, because we had time to kill or whatever it is. And I turned down this road, and I'm like, Joe, this is the road. This is the James Hurley coming down the bike, on the bike. This is it. I'm like, I'd watched how many Firewalk Me how many times, right? And we pull up, and it's the Palmer House. We didn't go in, didn't ask, it didn't bother. The thing just totally geeked out by the fact that we had somehow found the Palmer House here. It was constructed back in the 1920s. It was a man by the name of Fred Soch, who was from Iowa. He was a baseball player, moved out here to Washington State, and then was injured. So then he went into the Northwestern Mutual Life Insurance Company, and he was great, very successful insurance agent, like number 55 out of 6,000 agents, and that made him a lot of money, which then he was able to build the Palmer House. I'd like to think that maybe it was actually all about the insurance in this case here. I mean, the guy even looks like Fred. I mean, is that a thing? So he built this house in the mid-1920s, and he only lived in it for 3 years because he died at the age of 51. He's buried in a local cemetery. I went and visited his grave. He's buried next, very close to Shakespeare. There's actually literally a gravestone that said Shakespeare on it. I was like, oh, well, I thought he was Stratford upon Avon, but I guess it's here in Everett, Washington. Go figure. But Fred's buried out there. number of different owners throughout the years, but it really wasn't until Marilyn Pedersen moved in with her family. And she moved in 1960s. Marilyn was at the time when filming was taking place. And so she got a knock on the door and said, hey, I'm with ABC Television, or we're doing a film for ABC. Would like to use your house for a film location. And she's like, yeah, and I'm the Queen of England, you know? It was most likely Julie Duvik, who was the location manager. She was going out trying to find these particular houses, looking for something that would be a lawyer and a neurotic wife and, you know, that sort of things. And they stumbled upon this particular house from that. Marilyn agreed to it then, and there were things that she ended up staying on. Then they came back to Firewalk with me. She was there as well. She actually made the food that's found in the series. Like, she just cooked. She decided to stay there. But one of the pieces that you'll see on the front door, which David asked for her to leave on the front door, is the heart-shaped wreath. And Marilyn recounted in an Everett Herald article that David thought that this was very representative of the film, a divided heart and kind of the things you see on the outside, lots of love, but maybe the darkness that's on the inside. It's a common theme that Josh has talked about this weekend, common theme that we see within David's work, the kind of the underpinning of things. But if you are going to go to the Palmer House, check out Visit Palmer House online. Mary Reber, who's now the owner, she appeared as Mrs. Tremont in part 18. She does host tours. She's a delight, a true angel, and it is surreal when she opens the door and you're there, and it's like, I'm like, what year is this? I didn't even know what to say. I was kind of dumbfounded, you know, and going to see the stairs and going to see, you know, Laura's bedroom. I mean, like, it was pretty wild. Laura's bedroom in the film, it's a set. They ended up recreating a set for Laura's bedroom. That's why it has an alcove kind of in it where Bob kind of comes out from behind the dresser. That doesn't exist in the actual Everett house. They ended up recreating that.
But in the pilot episode, we do see the actual bedroom.
Yes, we do. That is the actual bedroom that is there. And I think the doorknobs are still original. That's obsessive.
We pay attention to the doorknobs. Well, that's the thing, not to move backwards, but that's another thing about the Wiltern. That doorway that Cooper inserts his Great Northern key into, that's no longer a knob. That's a handle now.
Yeah.
So it's bizarre to think that after just a couple of years, that would no longer have met production needs.
Yeah, change it out, you know. This is the house in Monroe, Washington. So this is the house that you see as establishing shots in season 1 and 2. The story goes it was built in 1923. Whit and Maud Clark built this. They had a carriage house. It sits at this kind of endless gravel driveway. Across the street is a park. It's Al Borland Park. When I went to visit the Monroe house and take pictures, I just decided to walk across the street for some reason and just see the park. There are establishing shots of like a river running at night that's like dark and so for the stream. That's where they shot that. You know, I think the crew was being just very, very creative in terms of trying to capture just things that they could use in the series. Transition shots, establishing shots, various other things like that. That was an exciting day. I was yelling about a stream. Very excited about the whole thing. But this particular thing, Dean and Leroyce Harness then moved to Monroe in 1965. This is Dr. Harness because he opened a chiropractic business in downtown Monroe. And then they moved into the house toward the end of the 1960s. They kept the house until about 2006 when they ended up selling it. But they were there, and very much like what happened in Everett, Julie went up and said, hey, we want to pay you $100 to use the house as this. Why it was used, why it was not used, they did the establishing shots of that stuff. According to Leroyce, they did film scenes inside. I've never seen scenes inside. Don't know if that exactly exists, but why was it maybe different? She seemed to think it had to do with the wallpaper. These are scenes from inside of the Monroe house, and there was lots of like wallpaper. It wasn't quite the same feel maybe as...
Different
vibe, you know, from that. They were very proud, though, of the house and being in it. When Travis Black visited in 2006, when she was getting ready to sell the house, they had created mugs that says, the house where Laura lived. And it's a coffee mug, very unique things, very like the Stone Bollard, I guess. A very unique souvenir from the home of where Laura kind of lived.
And as we're kind of getting into residential locations here, I want to emphasize again, be courteous. If you're, location hunting, taking your photos, take them from a respectful distance. You'll notice from that photo from the location, that's a long driveway,
Yeah.
and there's a huge privacy hedge in front of this house. So if you head out that way, please be respectful. And the same goes for Mary Reaver's house.
Scott?
Do you know, did they film at that house between the pilot and season 1? Because why would they be out there again?
So that's the thing. So, they do some establishing shots. I mean, the crew had an entire list of things that they were going to capture, within when they were up here for location filming in '89. They sent a crew back at some point. I want to believe October, November, just based on the leaves. Of 89. Yeah, so they were in the production of it. They needed some filler stuff. The leaves, and it's Double R Diner, where the neon RR sign, and then it disappears, and then it comes back, and then you can match up the snow on the mountains. And then there's a scene at Dirtfish, which was the sheriff department, and Leo's running.
The Waldo scene.
Leo's running. It's probably not Eric DeRay that's running. It's probably one of the crew members that's running at night. And the leaves back behind that are orange, so you got to have yellows. And I've been out here in October, which, by the way, is a beautiful time to be out here. Stay at the Salish. You get this gorgeous view of the leaves changing. It had to be in the fall that at some point.
I think so.
Yeah.
But these pickup shots are still a little bit of a mystery, which will give us something to think about
for the rest of my life.
For next
what I
year's
think is
time.
actually this. I feel like Dr. Jacoby. Very much the mystery of Twin Peaks will be solved. So here we are, the wallpaper from that. So I did say that there's 2 locations in California. One of them I'm still trying to find. It's the scene where James chases after Donna after having a tender moment or a vulnerable moment with Maddie, and she discovers, she drives, with the minivan down the street. We think it's probably in Pasadena area and so forth. But there is another scene where Leland is seen going to go golfing from this.
So this Palmer house is not a house. This is a driveway in a fenced-off park area in a private community surrounding Malibu Lake. There's no house to visit, not a particularly iconic filming location, but you'll recognize the street that was on. That's on Lake Vista Drive, which was another utility location for Twin Peaks filming. So, Leland has his joyride with his golf clubs in the back. And he gets pulled over by Sheriff Truman and Agent Cooper. The view when they pull over, you'll see here with the archway. If you walk up to that archway, what you'll find is the Timber Falls Motel, which is part of the Malibu Lake Mountain Club. Behind that gate, along with the Timber Falls Motel, you would also find Jacques Renault's apartment. You would find the interior for Horn's department store. These aren't visible from the street, and it's a private community, so they're not accessible.
And they don't like visitors, so just be mindful of that too. If you're going to go through that area, they don't like people to go explore.
These filming locations are not ones to linger at. But
it's like drive-by, just like taking pictures as you go by.
But yeah, this area, they used every inch of it that they could. So,
Hey, can I add something to that?
Please.
Sure.
We actually went there. They were very accommodating. They let us walk through.
Get out.
They let us walk up to.
I had a guy following me when I was there.
I was expecting what you said.
Yeah.
And I read that, and we were really surprised. Maybe we just got really lucky on the right.
I need to go with you is what I need to do. That's what so we'll plan a trip, because I would love to, I'd love to go see them.
when I visit that location, I look like I'm lost. I look like I'm up to no good. So, maybe I need to bring someone with a kind face.
That has to be it. Right?
Aside from Twin Peaks, though, if anyone here is a fan of the U.S. version of The Office, that intersection with the archway, the crosswalk there, that corner, that's where Michael Scott drives his rental car into Lake Scranton.
The driving instructions told him to whatever turn,
Yeah.
and just went right into.
Right into Lake Scranton. So yeah, you got a 2-for-1 in this location where if you're better looking than me, they might be very accommodating.
Yeah. That'll be at the office, the real office, 2026, right? We're gonna do an event.
Yeah, well, I think that's actually that the building that they use for the office is a TV studio, rather than an actual office. So maybe we can talk them into something similar.
One day. Let's skip back to Washington. Another popular spot, which has multiple houses, is the Hayward House. This one is located in Everett, Washington, on Grand Avenue. It too was built in the early 1920s. Early 1910s, by Harry Stuchel. He had relocated from Centralia to Everett, Washington, about 1903, after some of his business associates got into the lumber business. There was the Gold Mill, which became the Eclipse Mill Company in Everett, and he constructed then this house. You're going to see it right here. It used to be white. In the film, in the pilot, you see it as green, but it was originally a white house from that. It changed hands. He stayed there for a couple of years, but John and Bertha John and Sue Postle moved into the Stuchel house then in 1973. I found a great production article from the Everett Herald of them setting up scenes. They shot that in like March 10th and 11th or so of the house. The house is a little more blue today. The Postles have moved out, but they were paid about $200, according to Ms. Postle, and they were put up at the West Coast Everett Pacific Coast Hotel, which is a hotel nearby from that. A lot of the interiors of the furniture and the different props were all from the actual owners, so they didn't really add too much to it. But again, you can see, the same just really beautiful architecture that's out that way. The one thing I found, I love the help, and the door, little hands that are help. According to the Northwest Passage script, Harriet is actually sitting in Donna's bedroom, as opposed to Harriet's bedroom. There's a couple other scenes that may have been filmed, but they aren't necessarily shown. But again, this is all very much all from the interiors of the actual house in Everett.
So if this is Donna's bedroom, then Donna is canonically the swell gal.
I think that is actually correct.
Not Harriet.
Yeah. Do you like the full blossom of the evening? Do you prefer that or the full flower?
I'll have to give it some time.
Okay. Full blossom, folks? Yes. Okay. That's a good one.
We have a second Hayward house that looks nothing like the original Hayward house. So beyond the pilot, when production moved to Southern California, the house that was used for the Hayward house is located in Monrovia. It is green, so that's similar, but aside from that, obviously totally different shape. So this house, it's a 6-bedroom, 2-bath house. I'm not going to give you the address because
I feel like I'm on HGTV now, so,
If you want to make an offer, you'll have to find it yourself. But no, 6-bedroom, 2-bath. It was built in 1907 by Thomas Bynum, who was a part owner of Monrovia's local paper. The interesting thing about this location, to me, is not the house itself. It's the various addresses.
Yeah.
So on screen in the show, we see a street sign that says Lakeview Drive as the address. That's not the real street name. Lakeview Drive doesn't exist there. But also, we see on screen in the series, Donna gets a postcard from James, and the address is not on Lakeview Drive.
No.
It's on Oak Street.
Yeah. Someplace completely different. I don't know, they moved, or...
That's a question for tomorrow's prop panel.
Ain't that
We'll have to get into that with the chef. But yeah, it's 2 addresses that don't exist appear on screen for this Hayward house. And actually 2 years before Twin Peaks was filmed, in 1987, both interior and exterior of this house were restored. So it was looking shiny and new on screen.
And down the street in Monrovia, though, is the Twin Peaks General Store.
Mhm.
That's where Nadine purchases her cotton balls there. Also, the deleted scene of where Andy and Lucy get donuts.
Wagon wheel.
The
donuts?
Wagon Wheel Donuts.
Yep.
Yeah, that's not. Now it's like a boba place or something.
And I think the general store is a Pinkberry last time
Yeah.
I checked.
And yeah. And when I went into photograph, I was lucky enough to go there in 2010 before it, because the interior of the donut place is all different. But I asked, so can I get behind the counter and kind of just like look up and try to? She's like, okay. I said, I'll buy a donut, and so
It's because you've got a kind face.
it has to be it, right? I didn't have the beard then. Maybe that was not as intimidating.
I'll never learn my lesson. Okay, let's move back to Washington.
Yeah.
So Big Ed's Gas Farm, the original location as seen in the pilot, this is located at 8606 Preston Fall City Road, southeast. There's been a million different businesses in this location over the years. I think at various points it's been a stone tile store, it's been a windsock store. I can't believe that didn't last.
I know.
Windsocks? Do people not like windsocks anymore?
Socks.
It was a hydroponic shop for a while. Hydroponics in quotes. Okay.
It is Washington State, right? So,
And now it's balloon designers.
which do a huge business. You should check out their site. I mean, like, it's amazing some of the designs that they do. I was pretty impressed.
Yeah. So this structure was built in 1940 by Lawrence Butch Fredine and his wife Agnes. They had an existing business that was forced to move when Highway 10 was constructed. They were given $800 and a month to move their business. And that's when they built this storefront. It was originally opened as Butchie's Service Station and Grocery Store. And they ended up operating out of this location for almost 40 years. You'll be happy to know that they also built the house across the street where the Hurleys live, and they lived there. So we basically have a real life Ed and Nadine.
Yeah.
No word if they screamed across the street at one another.
Ed, I want those drapes on me.
The house looks very much the same. The gas farm itself is hardly recognizable, but it's got a lot of cool history. This is not the only gas farm.
Right.
This is one of 3 gas farms.
Yeah, there's one of 3 that they ended up using. The second one is in California.
The second one's in California. So after we move out of Preston, we go to Newcomb's Ranch, which is a roadhouse on Angeles Crest Highway in La Cañada, Flint Ridge. There's one outdoor scene filmed here in season 1, episode 5. Norma and Ed are having a heart-to-heart in the parking lot. We don't see the actual building. We see like a small corner of the overhang as they're walking past, or as the camera, I think, pans in or something. Just very, very brief. And it seems almost like why would they choose this location?
It's far.
It is far. It's at the middle of nowhere. It's like an hour up a mountain.
Yeah.
So a little bit about Newcomb's Ranch. It was originally a 160-acre horse ranch that was opened by Levi and Caroline Newcomb in 1875. The roadhouse itself was built in 1939. Probably not the original fence, probably not the original gutter, but that building was built in the 30s. It's been a hotel, much like the Butchie's location. It's been a bunch of things. It's been a hotel, a gas station, general store, restaurant, and brothel.
Oh, brothel. Okay, so we got hydroponics and brothel. Good.
Upstanding citizens.
That's
and
great.
here. So this location is, like we said, up in the mountains. Now it's a popular meetup spot for motorcycle and car enthusiasts. The restaurant is closed, but if you head up there on a weekend, the parking lot's going to be completely full with people zipping around the mountain. So
As you can see, the tire tracks.
yeah.
the road.
So yeah, if you're standing in the road to try to recreate this shot, be fast.
Be careful, yeah.
But yeah, there is a reason that they use this remote location, and I think it's actually the cabin. So on the same property as the roadhouse was the cabin that was used for Jacques' cabin, with the red curtains in the window. It's not standing anymore. The ruins are still there. You can still line up the shot with the tree and the bricks in front, but the cabin, unfortunately, is long gone. But yeah, it's located on the same property. So I think probably they were looking for a cabin location and happened to find their gas station location in the same trip.
Yeah. And they shot some of the walking through the woods scenes and some of the
Yeah,
stuff
yeah,
on that.
yeah. They did some outdoor stuff while they were there.
So that's number 2.
Now we're back up to Washington.
Now we're back to Washington for season 3, The Return, and we are out at a building that, according to records, when I can gather, was about 1941 to 1945. This was a major road, the North Bend Way, going out. Again, this was that everybody's passing through the town. That's why you have like the Mount Si Motel being constructed. You have all these other hotels. Because again, this was a major thoroughfare coming down as people went to Snoqualmie Pass. But this was a garage of some sort. The Fleming family owned Transmissions Plus, and that's what you see in the series. That's the big sign that's above that. They obviously added Big Ed's Gas Farm sign to it. But they moved in 1997, and then later they moved out sometime around 2016, and Michael Allen then opened Michael's Auto Center. But today, the place is known as The Line. And a great group out there. If you like mountain biking, if you're new to mountain biking, they have a really great facility. There's so many great trails out this way. They're really dedicated to just getting people outdoors and experiencing biking.
And they're such good sports about us Twin Peaks nerds.
Totally.
They recreated the gas farm sign.
Yes.
Yeah, that's not original leftover from production. They did that for us.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you stop by, make sure you.
And when I
pop in
visited
and
them,
thank
I visited them in August, and I said, "Hey, I heard about the sign," and they, "Oh, here, let's take you down to the basement. We'll show you where it is." You know, like going, "Okay, cool." You know, like it is, yeah, this giant Big Ed sign that they did.
Last year, during the Real Twin Peaks weekend, it was pouring rain. They had the sign out there. I parked the car, ran out to take a picture, and I'm getting soaked. And somebody runs out of the business with a gold shovel, and they were like, "Here, do you want me to take your picture?" And I'm like, "Yes."
They're awesome people. I mean, really. And they opened up a Rhett's Coffee. The second location's out there, so if you do go in. The Transmissions Plus, the sign I found on some article, they moved out further west in Washington State, but the sign was still like on this. I haven't drove out to it yet. I'll see if it's still there and try to get a
We
picture of
gotta
that
leave
sign.
something on the to-do list.
I do, you know, give me a reason to come back. But, you know, interiors of Ed looking out, that was also shot inside. It does look a little bit different now with the coffee house. It's been added. They've added some other things inside. But also the scene, part 8, where the mechanic hears the broadcast, was also shot inside. I mean, their view for their office, that's a tough
You can't
view.
beat it.
I mean, seriously, of Mount Si. They kept saying, like, we have a really great view here. I'm like, yeah, you certainly do. But the mechanic, that scene was shot inside that as well.
Beautiful.
We're wrapping up. This is coming to the home stretch here. We're going to go back to Malibu Lake.
Back to Malibu Lake. So the Easter Park gazebo is something we see frequently throughout Twin Peaks, and the primary location is in Malibu Lake. This is just past the intersection where you'll find the Timber Falls Motel and Michael Scott's unfortunate run-in with Lake Scranton.
Yes.
So just past the gate is where you would find the Easter Park gazebo.
Where you would have found.
Where you would have found it. They did use this location for both daytime and nighttime scenes. So we see a lot of it. Maddie disguised as Laura when they're tricking Dr. Jacoby. You get some James and Donna tender moments. You get Wyndham Earle spying on Cooper and Annie. This is all around this gazebo. If you pay close attention to the scene with Rusty in the chess piece, you'll notice that the platform of the gazebo sprouts some grass.
Yeah.
Which I think is so they wouldn't scratch up the surface. But yeah, as they're moving the chess piece, there is inexplicably grass growing on the gazebo.
I actually found in online, I don't know where I found, Pepperdine maybe had an archive. I found when they were filming, they actually put out a film notice of like February 9th and 11th that they were going to be filming at the lake, doing scenes. It must have been the Wyndham Earl scenes is what I'm guessing, or maybe the chess piece scene. That's 1991.
Timing lines up.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, this gazebo is no longer. In 2018, in November, the Woolsey Fire ripped through 100,000 acres in Los Angeles County and Ventura County. And the gazebo was a casualty of the Woolsey Fire, which also took a couple other Twin Peaks locations.
This is super sad. This is a New York Times photo, and I just cried. That was my own.
It's not off. I mean,
It's-
like we say,
Yeah.
things change in an instant. We don't usually get a picture of a Twin Peaks filming location burning down.
That is true. I haven't seen this. This is a new one.
Yeah, it's like they took a picture to make us sad specifically. But yeah, obviously the Woolsey Fire was devastating. But from a Twin Peaks perspective, we lost the gazebo, we lost Harold Smith's house, we lost the Tremont house.
Yeah.
So that looks very, very different now. This is a photo I took, I think in 2023, of where the gazebo would be standing.
Yeah.
The area is still beautiful.
Yeah, it's sad that the Smith house and the Tremont house, those burned down, but there is one piece that was saved, and Josh has it. It's the mailbox, and it's a silver mailbox, and someone was throwing it away, I think, and a friend of yours was able to give it to you. So
Can I take this? And they said, yes, we're just throwing it away. And then it was a birthday gift. It was an amazing birthday gift.
Who said Twin Peaks fans are hard to buy for?
I mean, easily. You give me a stone bollard, you give me a piece of Lucy's desk.
So what you might not know is that the original Easter Park gazebo was here in Washington.
It's literally right down the street. You can walk to it. And this is the gazebo. It's still standing. It's right outside Smokey Joe's. There is a deleted scene with Cooper and Truman. It was shot on February 21st, so it was one of the first scenes together with Cooper and Truman. The gazebo itself, again, there's just a brief scene. You can see it right next to the Snoqualmie Depot of the Northwest Railway Museum. Tried to recreate some of the nighttime shots. A brief scene you can find in the deleted scenes of a different one of the video releases. I don't remember which one. There's so many of them out there. But, interestingly enough, there is a deleted scene, or there was plans in the script for a pool hall at one point. And I know that some of the location scouting was also considering Smokey Joe's as maybe, I don't know if it's going to be a roadhouse or if it was going to be a pool hall, in some way, but that never actually came to pass.
It did make it on screen eventually.
It did. Took them 25 years, but
We got
place.
time.
And if you do get a chance to go to Smokey Joe's, it's a great place. You can recreate the whole where Sarah Palmer sat, the truck you guy, all that stuff. It's get a Bloody Mary, of course. Well, we hope you've enjoyed this presentation here. Thank you very much. We have a lot of other locations. If you want, Twin Peaks blog has a map, has all of different things. Follow Vinny on Instagram. We are going to talk about props tomorrow at No Boat Brewing. You can pick up a new beer and
They've got a
hops
Twin
are what
Peaks
they-
themed
yeah.
beer. Prop master Jeff Moore will be with us.
Yeah.
He's got shirts that he made specifically for this occasion.
Yeah. Thank you very much for coming out today. And yes. Oh, great. So if you are headed, a couple of things. We do have lots of other activities today. Cinema Unwrapped over at North Bend Theater. Some of the new merchandise from Snoqualmie Trading Company. They're literally open right down the street. You should check them out. This way, that way.
They're open early right now.
Yeah. Some of the great new shirts and items they have here. But thank you, Black Dog. Thank you, North Bend Downtown Foundation. Start Downtown Snoqualmie.
Thank you all.
See you in the trees.